screenshots are cool again. We can use the OpenAI operator, just like go take screenshots, put them. I think I built something like this in 2018 with Zendesk. I've also seen like compliance being used as a strong arm. So security folks will use compliance as a keyword to do stuff without compliance knowing that they're doing this. Look, I'm a security engineer, right? Don't get hacked is what I care about. And that's what the CEO of a company care about. Don't get hacked. See, this is exactly what is stopping, I feel, the entire movement, right? I feel GRC folks now, especially now, when you have these coding agents, this is the time you can switch to an engineering role.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the GRC Engineer podcast. I'm extremely excited about the guest I have with me today. Someone I've known for quite some time, a good friend of mine as well, and someone has been, a lot back and forth before I could have him on the podcast. So I'm very excited to have him with me today. Varun, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Today I learned that we are friends. Awesome. We are friends, Ayoub. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I just have to say that for the camera, but
Yeah, it's for the camera. It's
The
recording
real one-
already, right? Awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
the real one knows. That's fine.
Yeah, no, this is long due, man. This was due for a very long time. I've been ignoring you for this recording,
I think that's
but I'm
what's
glad we
happening.
finally picked a date and time to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been I want to say over a year. So yeah, it's fun. So kind of introduce Varun. I think he's pretty well known in the industry. So he's one of the co-authors of the GRC Engineering Manifesto. So he has worked as a staff security engineer at Apple. He also had experience at Robinhood and Zendesk, and I would say on the GRC engineering side, like he has a lot of super interesting insights, especially if you don't know about his Medium. I think you should probably kind of have a look. There's a lot of interesting things. Recently has worked on a series around maturity on the GRC engineering side. I think he already published 2. And I
Yes.
think there's a third coming where I think you pick a control and kind of go through the whole process end to end. And I think you did a couple of ones on like through GRC engineering last year. I think you did a series 3 or 4 articles as well, which I really enjoyed. So if you don't know about that, you should probably read through that. I really like the way he writes. And I think what I like about Varun as well is like engineer. Okay. So it's like, he thinks through problems and his problem solving skills are very kind of engineering driven, which I think is not that common in GRC. So yeah.
You're going to make me cry.
Yeah, it's fine. I can talk about the other side of it if you want as well. But
Okay.
yeah, glad to have you on. Of course, I like to start with like, what's your origin story of GRC? Especially you from the engineering perspective. How did you come across GRC?
Wow. Okay. So in undergrad, I used to write iOS, Android apps, write those PHP plugins for WordPress themes.
Wow.
And then I got my first job at EY, and it was a cybersecurity risk analyst job. Yeah, exactly, dude. Same. Yeah, EY. It's actually a good place to jumpstart your career, honestly.
I agree.
People stick around for a long time. Some people don't. But the first gig was to go and review ISO 27001 vendor risk assessments for large banks and financial companies in India. And when you throw an engineer with a spreadsheet in their hand to go to these 30 odd vendors at different facilities and just like choose this checkbox activities, that person might get bored and get frustrated and would feel like this is not going to scale his career. So that was our first rodeo. And back then, all organizations were open to allowing computer devices into the facilities. So I've walked into data centers with like physical printouts of the ISO checklist.
Wow.
And like written things down and then gone back to my desk.
When was it? 1999? When was that?
I'm not that old, dude. I'm not that old. This is 2016. It's not too long ago. So yeah, that was the first gig. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how security teams think, or rather don't think, or what GRC teams do, rather don't do. And I was like, I can't do this. So I quit my job, moved to the US, got my master's degree, and then got my first internship at Zendesk, where my week 0 was, hey, this is our SOC 2. Go help us collect evidences for these controls. And I'm like, oh my God, not again. Like these compliance folks just don't know how to do things. So I'm like, I'm not gonna do this. I just wrote up like these janky Python scripts. and they were like super like this is like pre vibe coding days, so it's like just dirty like 15 lines of Python, Jira API key, fetch Jira tickets, check the SLA dates, print out results, put in a dashboard. And this was a GRC team of 25 people back in the day. And the director was like, oh my God, this is super cool. We need more of this kind of person to do this kind of work. So she hired me full time. Super supportive lady, understood how the future of GRC would look like. And this is 2018.
Yeah.
And I purposely throw the year down there because 2018 is when other YC startups also entered the market to revolutionize what we do today. So yes, I wrote these Python scripts to automate a lot of like evidence collection, validation, and then I got a full-time job where I would do this full-time. So what was the end of my time at Zendesk, it was more like I had a backend platform. It would just like generate these scripts and run them on a regular cadence, which we now call it as continuous monitoring. So every morning it would run this script which would check if all our vulnerabilities in our applications and our infrastructure were meeting the SLAs for like SOC 2 and FedRAMP. And just print out a result on a dashboard. Oh man, back good old days, easy stuff. What happened next was we had the automation platform, but there was a problem of cultural acceptance for these kind of tools back in the day. I think that's what's changed now, especially with the things that you are doing, Ayoub, and thank you for that. Yeah, next I went to Robinhood. So again, that's how I entered the GRC compliance automation game. I don't think I ever left. Stayed on. Actually, my time at Robinhood was like just pure security engineering, doing AppSec, threat modeling, security
Nice.
reviews. So Robinhood was like non-GRC stuff. I went
Okay.
back to being like compliance people don't need me, they don't like me, they hate me. I don't
No.
think it's the right time for
I'm
doing
crying
compliance
now.
automation. 2021. This is before GRC engineering became a thing. So I went to doing like traditional security, like finding bugs inside code bases at Robinhood and doing security reviews. But then when I was quitting Robinhood, I was thinking of doing my own GRC startup. I'm like mid-market enterprise. That's the juicy place to be. Why don't I go and milk it? And then I realized that if I end up doing that, I need a lot of money to have a runway. So my investors would potentially ask me to sell to SMBs, and selling to SMBs is not. I mean, it's fun. It's like quick money. It's not sustainable. It's not sustainable business. So I'm like, I don't want to do that. So by this time, one of my contacts at Apple, she's a recruiter, she reached out and she wanted to interview me for an AppSec role at Apple. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. And then she's like, what do you want to do? And just told her this is what I want to do. And then that's how I met my boss at Apple. And she's like, oh, you have crazy ideas to do. You have the right skills. Why don't you go and build it here? And what better place to test out these things better than a Fortune 1, which is Fortune 1 at that time, Fortune 3 now.
Yep.
Thank you, NVIDIA. So yes, that's what I've been doing. Just building GRC tools for Apple, built it for Zendesk. In the middle, I got greedy with the let's go to a pre-IPO company. I was like Robinhood. So yes, I have a mixture of software engineering, security engineering, and then also an unusual interest in compliance problems.
Yeah,
Which makes
it's
me a weird
pretty
person.
rare. Like it's rare that someone from the security engineering side is like looking at compliance is like, hey, that's cool. I never heard that. You're the first one. So
Yeah.
nice.
I think Charles came from a malware research background, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, he's like deep in
Yeah.
SecOps as well. So there's like a couple.
Yeah.
Even Justin also comes
Yeah.
from kind of a SecOps background. So yeah, there's a few. And there's people like me that love GRC every single day for some reason. That's like the more boring types.
Well, it pays our bills, man.
Let's say that. It's a great way to think about it. I like
Yeah.
the pragmatism here.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, I love the story. Love the story. I think what's what's funny as well is like you kind of Zendesk was growing a ton probably in the time you were there, especially if you were there throughout 2021, like when kind of everything went a bit crazy on the kind of tech sector, and then kind of Apple is like huge, massive company. Like you've done it at different scales. What would you say is like some things that are similar in both kind of environments, and some things that are like completely different. What would you say scales well and doesn't scale well?
The way compliance people think remains the same.
Okay, good or bad?
Both ways. We need to get through the audit, but we need to walk away with some learnings. I think that's a culture I've seen generally in compliance teams. What is different is when I say technical abilities to solve problems, that's significantly different. The underlying infrastructure is a lot more complicated. Let's talk about like patching. The patching story at a Zendesk is very different from a patching story at an Apple. When I said different, sure, we have a patching metrics. That's one part of the game. But how do you patch? And what do you patch? And when and who is going to patch?
Yeah.
As you go from a smaller company, when I say small, think of like a 50-person AI startup, all the way to something like a Cisco or an Apple. These questions change. Who is going to patch it? When are they patching it? Why hasn't it been patched yet? At a small AI startup to like, get your, I don't know, like upgrade your EKS to the next version is much easier than to do it at a custom deployed Kubernetes cluster, which 10 different teams use and then are on 10 different versions and then can't upgrade because of some dependencies. Also, they have resourcing problems. So all this like things happen. Which I feel like when you talk about automatic security patches using, these GitOps flows, where sure, if you see a version number of using a lower version of Node.js and then you can just like bump it up, that's much easier when you're younger
Yeah.
or when you're smaller. As you go into a mature organization, those things change. So this is different. The infrastructure complexity and scale is just different. Just identifying who owns what is a challenge at places.
Yeah, it's been similar in my experience. So in a sense where in small companies you have like a big bias for action, like between you and the decision, there's like one individual. So like, let's say they use EKS or Fargate or whatever. Like sometimes they even have patching like embedded. So like it will automatically like push it and destroy the VMs and push new nodes that are like patched and stuff. For like big corporations, it's like there's so many layers of people that own stuff, and then they have acquisitions and legacy from all this stuff.
Yeah.
And companies that were pre-cloud, they have maybe some private stuff and like hosted data centers. And that's where I'm like, I think the smaller the company, the more likely GRC engineering does engineering. And the bigger the company, more likely GRC engineering does architecture and design. There's a lot more people need to do before doing anything. Would you agree with that?
I don't think GRC engineering actually exists. I mean, it's at a big company, right? Like even at Apple, I feel there are just like very handful of people who are even approaching GRC engineering as the way you and I have thought about it, right?
Yeah.
They're building security tools that achieve compliance. That's very different from actually GRC engineering.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
At a mid-sized company, I would say GRC engineering is still happening. At a large company, I'm still yet to see. And I'm like looking at like Cisco, Netflix, Apple. Show something, guys. Come on.
They need to do write-ups and then we'll host them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree in a sense. What I always say is stuff as well is, I had someone on the podcast. He used to be the head of security assurance for EMEA AWS and CISO at IKEA as well. And he was telling me, so the name of the podcast is Beyond the API. And he was telling me of how GRC engineering looks for like more like IKEA is like an older kind of business. And it's like B2C as well. And he was like telling me the headquarters have one tech stack. They might even have like a cloud center of excellence or something. And then they have subsidiaries in like 70 countries, which have their own IT systems. And he needs feedback from 70 countries, how controls are operating, because the ISO scope is all those countries. And he was telling me like engineering in a sense of how we think about it, they can't exist because the skills are not there and the complexity of the environment is not there to kind of like, it's not as easy to plug and play. And, I like what you said about different stages. It's because for me, small companies like GRC engineering is also coming through tooling. I think vendors, I think it relates to your posts, right? To your blog posts around maturity, kind of like that 3-stage. Yeah.
It's the awkward middle that's the messed up.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
If you're a very large company, you'll build your own stuff. Right. And if you're a mid-sized company, you're kind of stuck. Sure, I can get this vendor tool, but it doesn't do all of my job. So figure out what it does not do and wipe code the heck out of it.
Yeah, it's like you need to expand the tool. So the tool does 80%. You can't you can't build another tool that will do 100% because you don't have the bandwidth or the time. But you
I
can.
think 80% is also still very ambitious. I think as you grow, as you get more mature in the organization, that percentage will keep falling down and tends more towards zero, right?
Yeah, in a
Like
sense.
if I do see like a mid-sized company, 1,000-person company buy a GRC tool, it'll be very different from what it can achieve for these people versus a 30% startup buying a GRC tool.
Yeah.
And what GRC tools end up doing is they try to like generalize. They generalize for everyone. That's not gonna. I don't think it works. It will work for a certain level, and then you're like, oh, this tool does these three things great, but I also want to do this fourth thing that it does not do. And now you're an existing customer, your account executive is not motivated enough to help you. Now what do you do?
Yeah,
Right?
what stuff often is like they're amazing at compliance,
Yeah.
let's say. They're okay-ish at risk. They're horrible
Yeah.
at third-party risk management. And then you go down where like how you think about your program means like this tool that is very good at this is good, but for me, I don't need it. I don't need as much like depth on this, but where I actually need depth, no tool is good enough to meet my needs.
While I'm speaking like this, I'm thinking if you're a company who has had like 6, 7 SOC tools already done, if you feed that into Cursor, would it be able to spin up a GRC tool for you? I don't know. I want to try it out.
You're a very big AI optimist.
Yeah.
Cursor is going to spit out a GRC tool. Sometimes I won't name names here, but there's a company that is an open source GRC tool with very dubious marketing. I can say that for sure. Ambulance changing and everything, but that tool has been vibe coded.
I don't
And
think it's
just
a
raised
wrong
a little
thing.
bit.
I think it's a good thing. I mean, if you can vibe code your own GRC tool, why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah. So in my experience, what's tough with that is we've had experience on both sides, like building from scratch with proper engineers versus like people that vibe code. I think the issue is like you can prototype super quickly and you can
Yeah.
script quickly. But I think building a product, like there's so many layers that
Yeah.
before going through that stage I didn't think about, that when you're trying to,
Yeah.
especially I would say two things. You're an engineer, so when you vibe
Yeah.
code, it's very different to when a GRC
Exactly.
that's the big caveat. Because when you vibe code, you know what you're looking at. So even when you write a PRD or whatever you want to ask in the prompt, like if something goes wrong, you know what you need to tell to debug. If I'm a
Yeah.
Jersey person and it breaks, I'm like, fix it or fix this button that is too low. But like Cloud Code doesn't understand what I mean.
Doesn't, yeah. I think, yeah, I mean, I'm biased because when I look at cursor generating code or like Claude code generating code, I'm like, you should not do this instead of this. Like my prompts will be a lot different than what a typical GRC archetype would prompt like.
Yeah,
So yeah,
we should
I
probably
think
do
my
a
biases come
comparison.
from
We have a
yeah.
GRC prompt and then your prompt and how you speak to it, and you would just laugh at the difference.
Yeah. But I feel like it's not too hard because you're not designing a system that has to manage streaming for 1 million people, right? You're not streaming Super Bowl in a GRC tool.
No, 100%.
You're not building like a data lake to accept 1 petabyte of data per second. You're not Cloudflare. So you can have a tool that's not very technically complex and still be solving the business problem of GRC tooling. Let's say you want to collect 100 evidences a day if you want to do compliance control monitoring. And that's like probably 5 API calls per evidence collection, just making it super complicated. That's 500 API calls. Sure, it's not too complex from a technical standpoint. So system architecture won't be too complicated. You can run this off purely out of your like employer given system.
Yeah.
On a local host. And still achieve a lot more than what you would without having this.
No, I get what you mean. I think I think a lot more about like, I don't want to say edge cases, but I'm like, if you don't know technical stuff, you don't know how to store that data and understand the database layer. And then also I'm thinking like you might hard code the API key because you don't know how to handle secret.
Yeah.
Like there's also this thing where, especially at big corporations and engineering driven organizations, like when you want to do all this stuff and pull, you create extra API keys with a certain level of access to pull evidence from that system. And technically if you don't have baseline entitlements for that system, you need to create an access request. And if you're a business person and you say, hey, I'm going to use Cursor to build that and stuff, there's OWASP 10, and then there's like the coding guidelines of your company. So I'm trying to think about that, because often like someone that is a proper engineer might see the code and how it looks like, and they're like, if you ask me, I might help you do that in like I don't know, half the time. But you also want to have agency on the GRC team and do it yourself. So that's the
See, this is exactly what is stopping, I feel, the entire movement, right? I feel GRC folks now, especially now, when you have these coding agents, this is the time you can switch to an engineering role. Sure, you'll make mistakes on the way. Don't commit your keys to your version control system. Don't do that, right? Don't use the wrong data source. Use a Postgres, or if you use a NoSQL, if you're using like Cassandra, use the right kind of systems, but ship something that will at least help you automate your change management, or will help you automate the GRC side of your 17 vulnerabilities that you have in your systems in your organization. Like for IKEA, right, there's 70 subsidiaries. It means there are like 140 vulnerability scanners they use. I don't know if any organization or any vendor will support those many integrations. Or even if you have, okay, in my vendor tool, can I have multiple instances of an integration? I don't know. Maybe they support it, maybe they don't. Like, can I have like 15 Wiz connected to my GRC tool? Maybe, but at the scale, I don't know. You build the middleware. I think the GRC middleware is a great idea. There are some startups doing that as well. So there are people building in that space as well. But yes, I feel GRC people just should try, attempt to automate something, and I think that's always been my thing. At least give it a shot, guys. It's
100%.
And it's never been easier than it's today. Is that right, English?
Yeah.
That's good grammar.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yes. I think especially like for getting the first quick win and like seeing something work, I think it's great. And then you have to think about, you solve it for this, that works. It brings in data, like it actually helps you win back some time. And then you think about ironing out all the rest of it to make sure you can like push it, not push it to prod, because like for GRC prod,
don't
that's
push
really much. Push it to local repo that is managed by the GRC team or whatever, depending on how your GRC team is designed. I would say like what I've seen is like if you learn a little bit of software development without using those coding agents, you'll be way better at using them.
100%. But that's how you get better, right? If a typical GRC analyst decides to whip out a tool like this, I'm sure the counterparts in engineering and security would be super excited to like help them through. And there's always us, Ayoub, like we have this community here, right? Like we can always help people out.
No, 100%. Yeah. We'll offer people trying stuff, and I think this will also create more kind of practitioner-driven solutions to stuff. Because I think a big lack we've had is like for security engineering, for sec and all, they have so many of these kind of open source tools and different libraries and stuff they can use.
Yeah.
In GRC, I think because also the kind of a technical skills gap, it's been less and less common. And also because GRC engineering is part of their role, but it's not the only thing they're doing. It's within the boundaries of what else.
And this is exactly how we will actually get our audits to be a lot more mature. Let's say you're a GRC person, right? And you're an engineer as well. Like you have vibe coded stuff, or you've done some kind of engineering stuff. When you go and look for an auditor to audit you for your SOC 2, you're naturally going to pick someone who is as technically capable as you are, or a lot more than what you are. And that just raises the bar for our audits, right? And the bar for our audits go up, the trust in the world will just go up.
Yeah.
And then you just posted this a couple of hours ago that the word trust is being thrown out there. I think that's the key thing, right? Like we need more trust in the systems we use, and that'll come through. And in our world, it comes through, sadly, through audits. And if our audits are a lot better, I think we'll get better trust from the systems we end up using.
Yeah, I agree. Because what I would say as well, I don't know how it's been in your experiences. Like with GRC engineering, you get closer to real time for how controls are operating, because you can pull data at any point. You can do cron jobs like daily, etc. But the issue is audits are still annual. So the incentive to build this can't just be audits. Like it has to be something else. It has to be, I have this rich data which I can ingest and like combine with like risk data and other stuff, and then maybe push it back to CISO org.
Yeah.
And then another team can leverage that.
We aren't too far away where audits might be instantaneous and not just once a year.
You're optimistic. Yeah, we're not too far, but it's still a little bit far.
We're like 10 years far, but that's like
Okay,
in the
yeah.
compliance world, that's like, yeah.
I agree. Yeah, I think
I
we're
would
getting
want to
there.
see a world like that where I would just be like, hey, can we audit the system? And like, sure, go ahead, why not?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, I agree. I think auditors might disagree with this take, just because I think their role in there will be very different. And I say, I don't want to say anything confidential, but I would say some vendors would agree with that approach as well. Because I think when you combine, for me, the biggest issue is there's a barrier of kind of IP protection. So like when you have to be more continuous, you can't really, you know, design a story around your controls to ensure you don't
Yeah.
get a qualification on your report or whatever. It becomes less opinionated, so it's more like pass fail. So if you think about policy as code or whatever, like you'd run this, and these are kind of the specific payload I want. If it's not
Yeah.
matching that, then potentially you're failing. And I think people like to say that in auditing, there's like a human layer that kind of understands the broader context, the broader systems. And I think as of now, even people I had in deep dive this week, like Pierre Paul, so he shared how his auditors, he has JSONs for them, but they still want context. They still want like a conference page with more details and understanding like a diagram, because the JSON, like machine readable formats, like there's a lot of data, but potentially there's also a lot of noise. So it's like, how can you parse through and actually get what you want and what you need from it?
Do you think do we actually need machine readable data from the systems they use anymore?
I think with AI, we probably won't need that.
Exactly.
I think AI will probably kill the need for
Yeah.
JSONs and all this, because the issue of that is there's a, like even Rego, Rego for
Yeah.
it's super complex. Like I know a lot of
It's
engineers.
slow.
It's slow. Like it might really impact.
It's slow at scale. Sorry, it's slow at scale. It works fine, but it's slow at scale.
Yeah, like for like Kubernetes in production and stuff, like people kind of veer against using it just because it's slow. And like for people that are actually engineers and like believe and breathe YAML, they still say it's super complex to learn and write the right policies. And I'm like, for a lot of those things, like those abstraction layer, if the LLM has that understanding, then you don't really need to focus on that. And similar, you said like JSON, and like JSON, we pulled them from like API calls. And even like this kind of API driven world, which powered the automation wave we've seen.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, if an LLM can write these query on the spot, like then you don't really need to build all those connectors, because those connectors, they will be when you need them, you have them.
Yeah, I think what comes to my mind is we can say screenshots are cool again. Screenshots are cool again. We can use the OpenAI operator, just like go take screenshots, put them. I think I built something like this in 2018 with Zendesk. So we had these certain tools that don't have APIs, and the auditors wanted screenshots. So using a Chrome headless browser, using Selenium, you just write those things up, which will go into like a CI/CD tool, take the screenshots, scroll down, take a screenshot, click on this link, take a screenshot, put them into a folder. It's all like locally run on like a MacBook, right? And it just had like the sample of 20 change requests, and each change request had like 5 screenshots, so 100 screenshots into a folder. And this was done using a Chrome headless browser. Now we just need to wait for like an OpenAI operator to be cool enough to do that, but do that smartly and do it by itself.
Yeah, it's like computer use on the AI space has some, but it's like still is slow because it's based on your browser, etc. But I think once like one of the big AI players like kind of launches that capability to browse directly and like kind of write commands that will allow you to browse for something specific and have agentic workflows, I think then it'll probably be the
Screenshots are cool again, and our auditors can remain at the current technical expertise, and we can just like let them be at their current expertise and just give them screenshots that are pulled by AI or like pulled by an AI agent. And
they just have to trust it.
Screenshots are cool again. Sure, you will have a GRC analyst or an engineer sitting there and validating the evidence. We still do need human to validate a bunch of stuff, right? But yes, do we need integrations? Do we need our vendors to have 200 plus integrations? We don't actually need it anymore. Screenshots can be the next cool thing.
That would be funny.
Like if I was speaking to myself 4 years ago, I would have slapped myself. Like, no, screenshots can never be cool. But now they can be, could be.
Yeah, yeah, because especially like what I found crazy is that, of course, everything we're speaking about is really related to evidence collection. So
Yep.
it's a subset of compliance. But what's crazy is if you don't work in cloud native, if you don't work with like a very deterministic API environments, you wouldn't be able to get that machine readable formats that you can
Yeah.
parse through and showcase. But with that more agentic approach,
You can.
I can get to the ERM tool, the
Yeah.
you know, the HRS tool for
Yeah.
HR stuff. So I can get to any controls. I don't even care if the control, like the tool itself has good API endpoints, because at the end
Yeah.
of the day, it's like just a workflow based approach
Mm.
where it just does the same steps as you would do if you would test the
Yeah.
control yourself. And it would replace literally having the control owner there,
Yep.
because the control owner on the engineering side could just give you the 10 steps and then you could just feed that and they just run the same 10 steps. So yeah, interesting.
We just need to wait patiently on the sidelines for these AI companies to build these cool things, and you can just
Yeah.
use them. And think about it, right? It's not cheap to run a browser agent. It's computationally expensive than an API call. An API call is significantly cheaper. But in the business case of compliance, where there is high stakes money involved, you can use an expensive thing like browser agents here, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense, yeah, to use something like that. But let's see for these tools to actually work and mature. And if I see a browser agent working, definitely send it your way and be like, dude, this is cool, man. Let's like
This
check
is
it
the
out.
future. It's
This is
happening.
the future.
We need you to
But
help them.
at scale and should work for all controls, right? Like, how will the authentication work? Let's see. I don't know.
Yeah, because I think like the end goal would be your tech stack doesn't matter for
Yeah.
getting the evidence. I think it's the end goal, because when I speak to people that work in like healthcare or even like even fintechs, it's like free lines of defense, so you can't really look at some stuff because you don't
Yeah.
have access. And what's tough is like they feel outside because they don't have access to the tools, and also
Yeah.
potentially don't have the engineering skills. But I think like, AGI was a big thing up until a couple of weeks ago, and then everyone kind of stepped back from AGI, now thinking,
Yeah.
okay, we need to build systems that are actually being used by people. And that's where those workflows, they're not like sexy or like amazing, but the
Yeah.
actual use cases, like you think about big companies with lots of touch points, lots of stakeholders, like they can save hundreds of hours a year, like easy. So
That's the key, man. Like the amount of time we spend in just doing compliance with stuff. I'm not about security. I think compliance should be free. I don't think you and I should have jobs, first of all. Right? Like,
what? I need a job.
yeah. I mean, look, if you have great security and if you have a way to prove that these controls work, and if you have like one person to battle your auditors, that's all you need. You don't need a fully function. This is a hot take, right? I don't think you need a
It
compliance
is.
team. You should not. You need a great security team and an audit liaison
Okay.
to do this
Okay.
right.
I have a I have a rebuttal. If
Yeah.
you don't need a GRC team, why would you need an AppSec team? You can have all the security embedded with the devs, and then they own all the stuff, and then you don't need AppSec.
I mean, the rebuttal to that is you don't even need software engineers then. Why do you want to use apps?
You don't need anyone.
Yeah, I'll swim from SF to London to see you, man. We don't need flights anymore. I mean, we can keep going back, but
No,
the goal
of
is to
course.
go forward, right? So, I mean, we need GRC teams. Ideally, in a world, this should be working so well with security that, but this never happens, right? Like I'm saying these things, but it's so idealistic, it never happens. What you can do is use tools to get closer to your security partners and to get closer to your engineering partners. And I feel engineering, and in a tech company, especially in a tech company, if you're contributing to the code base in some way, you do get a seat at the table, and compliance won't be left at the bus stop, right? So that's how you get a seat at the table is by showing up with the code base and saying, this is what we've done, this is how we'll integrate with the tools. We saved you. That's how I've done it, right? You tell engineering teams, we're gonna save you these many hours in doing compliancy work, but you're gonna still get the compliancy check and the thumbs up, but it's gonna be done by tooling and not by you as a human being. And they love that.
Yep. No, I like that. I had a question more around like, we spoke about a little bit, pretty well about evidence collection, continuous control monitoring. There's something that is a bit challenging sometimes when I think about GRC engineering is, when you have engineering resources or talent inside GRC, technically GRC teams should review the controls, check if they operating effectively, but they shouldn't own that control. It should be with the backend dev, the infra, whatever. Don't you think there's a risk? I've seen that happening. I have a good friend who told me it was an issue they had. Is like he had a fully fledged GRC engineering team, and then the backend devs were like, you come to us with all these questions and all this stuff. Like, you have engineers, just fix it yourself. We'll give you the keys, we'll give you access, just fix it. So then we can have sprint planning worked on something else. Like, then it kind of breaks the rule of GRC should be like, the people that just review. How do you think about this?
Sure, give us the keys and we'll write the product for you. We don't need your team to write features then, right? Give me your keys and I'll build the entire system that you guys are building. So we don't even need your team to exist. But that's not how it works. We need you guys to ship features, but ship them securely. So
yeah, no,
it's like
you're right.
But yes, yeah, I mean, the way I think about it is that I've faced this issue right into my internship as well. It's an issue of audit independence. You need to communicate audit independence to your engineering partners, which says that the person who operates the control and the person who validates the control are two different people. It's like if I am giving a math test in school and my teacher or my professor is like, you can grade your own math test. That, sure, if I have high integrity, I'll give me the right, but I don't think people have high integrity these days anyway. You're not going to do that. Two different people, that's why you have a teaching assistant or a grader who grades things, right? Exactly the process of how internal audit functions. And that's exactly how a compliance function should function. But if you're an engineering team, your feedback to engineers should be more technically nuanced versus saying that, hey, your access control is broken. No, you're going to fix your access control because using this version of Django, this is where it's broken, upgrade this library to this version, or like this is the place that it's broken at. So it's more specific feedback, and that's why AppSec exists, because the feedback from AppSec teams is right. Line number 167 on your code base is broken, right? This is where you got to fix it.
Yeah.
You can make the pull request, but they got to accept it, right? Again, it's a battle of audit independence. But if a GRC engineering team is ending up owning the controls, they could also end up owning the features.
Yeah. And then
do we not need people to ship features?
They own the outcome if something breaks.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But yes, independence is the key concept to be explained to your partners while doing these things. And also, there's a big difference in automating for audits and automating the control. It's two separate automations.
How would you define automating the control?
Let's take an example. Patching.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say your EC2 is running Ubuntu Linux version, I don't know what's the latest, like it's a 13, right? And latest is a 14. If you have to patch, you will upgrade the patch version. That I would say is a control automation where your automation or your script, not when I say your, I mean it's done by the engineering team or by the security engineering team. It's not done by the compliance people. They're upgrading the version from a 13.1 to a 13.2 or a 13.1 to a 14, right? If it's a higher version of grade. They're doing that thing. The compliance job, the compliance audit automation is to look at what version it has right now and what version should it be. They are not actively upgrading stuff. They're not operating the control, they're checking if it works. And you have an automation on the compliance side because you don't have one Linux system, you have like 5 million Linux systems. Or you don't have one EC2 instance, you have like a 5 million EC2 instances. So you need an automation on the GRC side just to check if those two version numbers are accurate. But this is just like one control patch management for a cloud resource, but like scaling this throughout your infrastructure is what our automation should look like. Never have a write key, a write access key in your GRC engineering infrastructure. It should always be a read-only key. And that's how you maintain the independence.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that approach. And I would say as well, something I've seen more and more is like the tools used by the specific security teams. So let's say they have a SaaS tool in place or something for SCA on the AppSec side, or on the InfraSec side, they might have like something good on the CSPM side. Like there's ways through which you can leverage the EDR, CSPM, and pull data from them, because you get two things out. You get, sometimes your level of access is super locked down. So for example, in GCP, where you don't have access to something, you don't know you don't have access, which means you have massive potential gaps in what you think prod is, because you have maybe a narrow level of access.
Yeah.
Because often like CSPMs, they give you, like, because it's a graph based, like you have pretty wide read access, which means you can still pull data. And if you can pull controls for a lot of stuff where the CSPM tool might even test those controls natively for you, so you can just pull the test results and like whatever they tested. You can speak the same language as InfoSec or MSec or CorpSec, which means when you need to work with them on remediation, you know where they pull data versus you directly
Exactly.
doing natively to the tool. And also the other thing is because the tool does all that logic for you, what you have to pull is a lot smaller. So technically, you can have 100,000 entities in scope and learning how they operate and if the control is passing, versus you having to understand the specific context for each and every control.
Okay.
So there's also ways, especially in bigger corporations, where you have security as like different orgs fully fleshed out versus like just a small team of engineers. You know, if they use these tools versus using native AWS, or they have an MDM and an EDR to manage like the endpoints, like you directly hitting the endpoints makes no sense. Like use the tool. It already has like an agent running on
Okay.
every machine. So you can like kind of scale your impact, and potentially the engineering work is even less. Like you just have to learn technically you just have to speak to one API to pull hundreds of thousands of controls.
Okay. Yeah. The thing is, how do you get the confidence that your CSPM is configured correctly
And
and it has 100% coverage? And you're
so
not missing
I agree.
any snowflake accounts of AWS that some engineer paid with their own credit card. So things like this, right? Like at a bigger organization, it's more like, okay, you have a SaaS tool, but what's the coverage it has? Does it have like coverage across our scope? Which scope? Are you talking about the PCI scope or the SOC 2 scope or the ISO scope? But we don't need it for the ISO stuff. We need it for the SOC 2 stuff. So
Yeah, I agree with
yeah,
that.
you
But
see
what
what
I would say is most likely they will have a bigger scope than us because we like to do some scope
yeah.
manipulation. Often we'll have, oh, our scope for ISO is the coffee machine,
Hmm.
the guest toilets, and this printer. This is the ISO scope. So there's like, we do a lot of scope manipulation where if we say this
Yeah.
is prod, it's very tough for an auditor to challenge our definition of prod because they don't have the context. 'Cause think
Yeah.
about it. The infra team, if they say this is prod, like the infrasec team can't just come in and say, oh no, actually just half of that. Like the other, like like those images we don't really care. Like they don't as important. Like you don't really
Okay.
as much. You get what I
Okay.
mean?
I see what you're looking at, but okay.
But it's still, I still think like it's still just engineering to do that. I would say. But also what I like is when you combine artifacts coming from all these tools, like it really makes a relationship building better. Because sometimes the security engineers they like if GRC could help on like winning some battles with other teams, and sometimes we don't hear in the conversation.
I've also seen like compliance being used as a strong arm. So security folks will use compliance controls and compliance as a keyword to do stuff
Yet,
without compliance knowing that they're doing this. And that's the thing, right? Oh, you're doing it for SOC 2, but does SOC 2 actually need it? No, but you're just using SOC 2 as a use. But that's okay. Like as long as you're getting more security work done, it's fine. But just let the compliance team know that you're doing that because the way you added controls will change. Stuff changes.
yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it's better if we collaborate on that versus
Yeah.
using it directly. But I think still like because I think you have a limited amount of political
Yeah.
power you can use. So if you use it all the time, it's like shouting wolf and stuff. It's like when you actually
Yeah.
need it, then you did it 100 times. Like we
I
won't.
think I think if I were a CISO, I would let my entry level or like mid level engineers and hires rotate from GRC to SecEng and then throw SecEng engineers into GRC.
Wow,
And like just for like 3 months. It's like try it out and see what happens.
you're giving
Like
ideas.
let
To those.
yeah, why don't you try it out? Like there'll be some employees who'll be willing to switch and take, oh let me just handle the audit this time. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I actually really like that. We have that at our company, like kind of shadow programs where you can go to the team.
Yeah,
You can even do that. I think it's good to do that even outside of security. So think about it like you're a security AppSec person. You could like
yeah,
shadow the product team and understand how they prioritize. Because then you go to the engineers and you're like, hey, like you should have like those non-functional requirements in your sprint.
yeah,
And if you speak to PM, who actually does all of the they actually design who's going to work on what, then you understand like the trade-offs and everything.
This is, I think we're going towards a security champions conversation program where you have like the security people in different teams. But I don't think that's the goal of this conversation. But yeah,
No, but
compliance champions would be too much.
no, yeah, it's too much. Yeah, I think it's too much.
To ask.
I think you need to reduce the toil for all of them,
Yeah.
like in terms of what you create for them. But also, I think some friction is always has to be there, just because you have to keep your role. I think if you say yes to everything, then you're not on the security side anymore. You're just like a token for whatever like people want to do, because people don't have the maximum amount of access for the most creative reasons ever. So I think to kind of work on that and helping, because what's tough sometimes is security when they don't try to push for something, and then the GRC team is more on the kind of back burner or not very really involved. Like then the other security teams might not feel as GRC is part of the team. So that's something that I see sometimes.
It also depends where in the organization is your security team reporting to. Sometimes GRC reports into legal and security into engineering, and they're like completely different places. And this is more of an organizational politics conversation. But hey, I'm an engineer. What do I know?
No, but I fully agree. It actually depends if you're under the CISO or not. But yeah, no, I think it's been some interesting things, and something we didn't speak about. How do you think about risk in your context as GRC engineer? How do you think about risk? How does it sit within the way you think about stuff?
I'm yet to see like a good risk register, like a working risk register. Maybe I have not seen it. Maybe it exists, and the friends I have not seen it. So I think it doesn't actually accurately capture what it should have been capturing. There's all these Monte Carlo formulas with FAIR and stuff that help to calculate risk. I go back to the basics, man. Like, you don't want to be breached. Like, your one goal of the security is like, don't be breached. Don't get hacked, right? Anything that's tending from a 0, it's like not being hacked, to 1 that's like being completely hacked. Anything on that limit scale is just risk.
Yep.
So I don't have too much opinions on risk. I don't have opinions because I don't think it actually has worked for security. It has worked very well for enterprise risk because they can directly tie down business risks to dollar values.
Yep.
Security teams will use lost sales contracts to do that. Maybe, I don't know. Let's say your company gets breached, a stock falls 5%. Is that the lost market cap risk value?
And then the next week it goes up 5%.
Yeah, this is how I've like, this is not investment advice, but I do this. Always buy stock if I hear a news.
My gosh.
Of a public company announcing a security incident. Not investment advice. Not an advisor.
He's giving extra nuggets of wisdom for free. This is great.
So yeah, I feel like risk register should be cool. There should be more value to it. I think it's more for the board, and it's more to like that checkbox thing where we are like identifying business risk and working towards it. I have seen items in risk register being open for a long time.
Yeah, years.
Accepted. Some things are just because your company is structured that way. So, so what do you think about risk? Yeah, I'm not a CISO yet.
Yeah,
I don't think about risk.
I
think once I'm a CISO, then I'll probably care about it a lot more because I have to like prioritize the projects I want to take over for the team and the way I communicate my risk to my bosses.
Yeah,
I think then I'll care a lot more. Right now, I'm just like, yeah, if it's risky, just fix it. How hard is it?
My gosh, but hot takes. Yeah, I love the hot takes. I like, I think you're focused on your niche and you're trying to like boil the ocean, which
I don't know about risk. I don't know. I don't care. I do care, but it's like I can't do anything about it, so I don't know what to do about it.
I get what you mean. That's fair. You should listen to the podcast we have with Tony, who's a risk person.
He's a fair guy.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I like the way you think about it. So it's like you think compliance is more operational in a sense. It's closer to the actual like technical environment, like actually how things are in practice. And you think risk is a bit more abstracted and high level than,
I think the way you talk about GRC, right, governance, risk, and compliance. Compliance is the baseline. Then you have risk calculations over it. And then there's an entire like governance story that people have, which is also like more. I think it's more like board meeting conversation than it's actually about security.
Everything is about the board review.
What?
Everything is about the board review.
Yeah. Look, I'm a security engineer, right? don't get hacked is what I care about. And that's what the CEO of a company care about. Don't get hacked. Or even if
No,
you're getting
100%.
hacked, it should not affect our customers, and it should not affect our our stock price or our market cap valuations.
Nah, 100%. Yeah, what's tough then is like when your operation is like, how do you prioritize? Like there's 10 different things I need fixing, and I only have 8 hours in this day, and I need to focus on the things that will get the biggest impact. So at the end of the day, I can showcase that I've actually used my resources effectively, and that's where it kind of gets more complex. I think having a kind of remediation bias in the day to day, I think is super nice, especially sometimes a massive impact can happen with a very small fix. But sometimes you need to re-architecture something to fix an issue, because sometimes like some access control issues to the design of how the product was built, and then you're like, we need to reduce the risk, but we can't really redesign the platform because we need it to still be available for customers. So it's like that's where you get gray here.
I also feel in security and compliance specifically, the signal to noise ratio is not the ratio I'm happy about.
Yeah,
We need more signal and less noise.
I agree.
A couple of your access reviews fail doesn't mean you're going to get breached. It's not the end of the world. I think tying it down to the real security issues is going to be key. And I feel like depends on the organization, right? Today, if you are going to get a qualified SOC to report, which is going to churn some customers, then it's a high value thing. I honestly see a lot of these B2B companies use compliance as a sales enabler, and that's rightfully done. It is a sales. SOC is a sales tool. SOC is not a security tool. It's a sales thing, right? And for a B2C company, what will you buy? Will you stop buying IKEA desks if they don't have an ISO? No, I'll still buy an IKEA desk. Yeah. So that's how I think about it. It all ties down to what organization you work for and what is their business model. And if it's more geared towards let's not get breached, or is it more towards let's not get a qualified SOC 2 because we lose customer deals? Which one is it? Or is it more like it's brand reputation, right? So
yeah, so
that's
it's
how
like
I see.
it's company dependent. Depending on what they care about, you focus on what they care about. Yeah.
Not all companies care about bad access reviews. Some people will not care about it because their business is not get impacted by it.
No, you're right. You're right. And that also like how security culture is at that company and how strong it is. And like, I get it. And what kind of data they handle. Like if you have PHI, PCI, it's not the same as if you're selling, I don't know, like, I don't want to say anything, but like, I don't know, calendar tool or something that is like low touch in terms of personal data. I love calendar tools.
Right. I love calendar tools. I love these, the Active Directories and these Google Group situations that you see in the companies, even though they're like really cool places to dig and get our information.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. That's a very good point, actually. Yeah, that was a great conversation. I want to ask one last thing. You had a lot of hot takes, so maybe it doesn't make any sense, but I want to ask a question. Is there something, GRC, could be security as a whole, something you think is very true for you, but you think the broader industry would disagree with you 100%, but you're fully committed to that take and you fully agree that it's the best?
One thing that I think is the best, but the industry might not agree to. And
you already said the 15 of them.
Yeah, I know. I'm not thinking of a unique one. So yeah, I think going forward, we'll not need compliance. And that's a thing that I feel. I feel like the way the world is moving, and I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of a journey where we have great security and we have great ways to prove our security assurances so that any customer that wants to buy a B2B SaaS product should be able to receive trust from the tool that they want to buy. And it should not be through this expensive, complicated process of going through SOC 2 audits, right? I don't know how it will happen.
Yeah.
And even if you look at SOX, SOX is going through a big change. Even PCI is going through a big change. They're getting more technical. The auditors are getting stricter. I'm honestly loving that because that's actually sending us more towards having an engineered approach towards compliance.
Yeah. Even FedRAMP 20X, like there's a lot of changes on that space as well. Yeah.
I've not looked at FedRAMP yet, but I'm sure it's going through the same maturity scale. But yes, it won't go anywhere. Even though I want it to go away, for the next 15 years, I think it will stay. Then you and I will still have jobs. We'll buy good real estate and have like multiple sources of passive income. because we've built great amount of money by working in this field.
Nice.
But yes, I think it just hurts me that this is a thing that we all agreed upon 20 years ago, that we will have vendor audits to do things, and takes me back to my early career where I had to go and do that. I think I've been just optimizing my life to keep my past self happy. It's more philosophical. I don't want to see a new grad like me walk into a security team and ask the ISO kind of questions. That should not happen to anyone in this planet. Humans are made for better things than for an ISO checklist.
Wow.
That's my thing. Like, I think in my life personally, I've done that as well. Just like try to fix problem that I had as a child and not make sure that happens to me in the future. So yeah, I think it's more
Wow.
philosophical.
I just want to caveat, I'm not his psychoanalyst or anything. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not my therapist. I know that.
Yeah. No, I'm not a licensed therapist, but yeah, I loved it. They're
You
very,
could try. I think it'd be a good one. You could try.
yeah, podcasting helps.
Podcasting helps you get people's
I
inner
need to do
childhood
more like
issues
this,
out.
you know? I do this, I think my,
I'm sure, dude. Honestly, I'm sure. Like, if you were a therapist, you could charge by the hour, and this could be a lot of money for you.
GRC therapist, let's go.
GRC therapist. You can edit these parts, but
Yeah, of course we will.
yeah,
Yeah, I loved it. As always, always love chatting with you.
yeah,
think it
man.
was,
Of course.
A truckload of hot takes, which was cool. And I think also you have a very unique perspective, but at the same time, I think your perspective is like extremely, like it's valuable and rare, which I like. That's what I
Yeah.
like a lot about you, just because you think through problems differently. So I think we really need that.
Thank you.
Actually, there's a lot of echo chamber in GRC. So, that was a lot of fun to have you on. And I'm glad, hopefully people learn from you the same way I've learned from your insights through this conversation. Yeah, sends a lot of love to Varun. Make sure you follow him on LinkedIn. Check his Medium. Venmo, you have a Venmo probably.
Yeah, Venmo is fine. Venmo works too.
Yeah.
Would love to receive extra paychecks on Venmo.
Yeah,
Would
he's
love that.
buying. He's buying new mentions, so he needs a little bit.
So
yeah, it was great catching up, and
All right.
yeah, take care.
Ayoub, thank you so much. Thank you so much for what you've done for the community. Really appreciate it. You've been a great supporter and a great friend. So thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Take care, sir. Bye bye.